Hello, my name is Michał Kunza. I am a Software Development Director at BCC, and I'm going to present BeeOffice Service Desk, our standard service desk product available in Software as a Service and on-premise installation option. This presentation is mainly the overview of service desk functionality, also a few additional functions such as installed base management or problem management. I'm going to briefly explain implementation approach and cost and the option to access the demo system. One of the key elements of the BeeOffice Service Desk is creating the organization structure of the company that we use to model the processes in service desk and user authorizations. So we can control the access rights to different types of requests or categories and reporting authorization by the company organization structure. I'm going to use our demo installation sometimes as administrative user with all rights, and in some illustrations as a service consultant or an employee of a company. So here we see a fragment of our organization structure. As an illustration, we can create large complex structures. We can also have a small subset of your company if only one department is using the system. In here we have organization units and positions. Some of these units represent our users, so a customer of our service organization, and the other units can represent support specialists, their manager, and the whole team. As I mentioned earlier, this team can be much larger or just a few people. It can also be not just IT team. We can use the service desk application also for handling certain types of HR or other administrative processes. For instance, in our company, we also handle issues related to cars or some small fixes in the office, also via the same application. Also, organization structure, positions, teams, and assigned users are the first level of organizing the system. Then the second dimension that we can use, I'm going to switch briefly to customizing options, and in service desk customizing groups we have service case processing groups. So here we create teams that can correspond one-to-one or can be different teams as our organization structure. So for instance, I could take the whole IT or just selected few employees to be IT authorizations team. Another group of people, possibly some of the same employees or some different, can be our IT infrastructure team. Another group of people can be allocated to systems management. So as you see, these groups can be the same, partially overlap, or different than organization structure, and they can of course always be maintained and changed depending on your changing requirements. So the next dimension of setting up the service desk for your company is defining the service tasks. So the dimension by which your customers are going to describe their requests. And these tasks, they are defined, of course, with their name and some administrative information, and also which categories are allowed for this particular task. So for instance, here we have CRM system, and for this task we allow development requests, user management requests, and service requests. Who is authorized to create service requests? Here we have the main group, all employees. We could select other groups that are defined. If, for instance, certain type of requests would be limited to a specific group of people. So for instance, if we have like some payroll system, and we would like to have only managers or only HR specialists to raise requests about this payroll system. Then the next grouping is authorization to process the service requests. So which teams are allowed to see and handle the incoming requests. Here we have, for the CRM system, we have IT all teams. We could also have it limited to the authorizations team, infrastructure team, and systems team. So there's three main settings. Categories, who is allowed to enter, who is allowed to process these requests, are our main configuration. As you can see also here, depending on the task and category, we can also determine the default processing group that is going to receive these requests. So here, for instance, development requests and service requests are automatically directed to IT systems team. User management requests are directed to IT authorizations team, but these requests can be generally handled by all IT teams because, for instance, the user may not classify the request correctly at the beginning, or some requests can be complex and require support from various teams to resolve it. So this way we define any number of service tasks and categories that are needed by our company, and we can of course create new tasks as our infrastructure and company is evolving. Now I'm going to switch to an example of a certain user interaction. I'm going to log on as one of our end users, Emily Rose, in our service demo organization. Her view of the system is slightly different. She does not have those administrative and configuration options, although she can see a simple dashboard with, let's say, requests in progress. Here we have a request that was created yesterday in the evening and is still not handled, and available next actions, display existing requests or create a new request. So in our example, Emily is going to create a new service request. Subject, let's say it's going to be some sort of request related to ERP system and related to authorizations, so we could classify it as user management. Priority, by default medium. If we specify higher than medium priority, we need to enter the reason, or let's say and the issue description. Here we have example of description that is already filled in with a template because we selected something related to users and authorizations in SAP system. This request is already prompting us to enter the user ID, SAP system client, and a few other elements. So for instance, our request is filled in. I send it to separate organization. I see the new request added a moment ago, priority number 2, and also open. I might create another request of a different type. One option is to select from this list of tasks and categories. Another option is to search through this hierarchy, and also with a full text search through categories that is highlighting certain types of requests. So for instance, I will send something about a laptop. Now I have 3 requests in the queue. So let's switch to the service operator. John White in our sample organization is the manager of the service team. He has at this moment 1 request assigned to handling by him, and he can also display the list of all service requests that are pending. John can also see some service desk statistics. These statistics here, they are of course just a possible sample of the data that we can pull from the service desk system. Here we have the open and close requests in just 30 days. This demo system is only 3 days old, so we have just 2 days ago 3 requests created, 2 closed. Yesterday 4 requests created, 2 closed, and today 2 requests created. Those that I have just entered as Emily Rose a moment ago. We also see that 6 requests are in progress 1 day or shorter, 1 request is older than 1 day, and no requests are older than 7 days. And also split of the recent requests by task, 44% of requests related to laptops, 33% of requests related to our ERP system, 1 request for CRM and 1 for servers. Now going to the service support overview, John can select, of course, by various criteria such as status, when updated, category, and so on. In the system we have not so many requests, so I can just display all of them. John can see immediately requests allocated to him, they are indicated, and also those that are open, which means there is no specific person assigned to process these requests yet. So for instance, John picks the request created by Emily yesterday and assigns someone from the infrastructure team, let's say Mary, confirms the assignment. The request status changes to work in progress. Previously it was open, so without a specific owner. Now it is work in progress assigned to Mary. The next request for authorizations, John assigns someone from authorizations team, could also change the team entirely. He can assign himself. Confirm. Status changes to work in progress. And the last request, again infrastructure, related to infrastructure, but John can respond immediately to this request, so he assigns himself first and then immediately sends the request back with an answer. So this request was already sent back to the customer, and it is now indicated that it is back to Emily. The history of interactions is presented in a sort of chat view, indicating the actions by the customers from the left side and the service organization from the right-hand side. So, as we remember, we have assigned one of those requests to Mary, one request remains with John, and one is sent to the initiator back. Let's handle the second request, something related to authorizations. It is possible that the information provided by the customer is not sufficient to resolve it, so we can send it back to the customer with additional question for information. So for instance, please specify for So now the activity is also back to the customer side, but with a question, not a solution proposal. As you have noticed, we have the next actions available changing depending on the current status. So for instance, when the request is work in progress on the service side, we can send it back to the customer. When it is already pending customer, we do not send it back, but we can provide some additional information to the customer. We can change the assigned specialist who is handling this request. We can create internal notes that will not be visible to the customer, or we can change the classification of this request. So for instance, if we consider that the priority is wrong or the category is wrong, we can also correct it and add explanation here. For each of these activities, we can also report various types of time units. Let's say it could be split time actually spent and time that will be billable in case of servicing external customers or some sort of cost allocation for internal service desk. So for instance, I'm going to add internal service node. We need to and I'm also going to record the time it took me to handle this request so far, many minutes. So this is an internal node, so this crossed I indicates that the action will not be visible to my customers. We can also see this request in terms of this more structured table of actions, if it is more convenient, especially when the history is very long. This more condensed view is more clear, and also this view is presenting us the totals of the time spent. Here on the header level, we can also display various views of the header to make sure that depending on our preferences, we see what is most useful for the current operator. Let's take a look now from the point of view of Emily. She has now still one request that is work in progress in service and two requests that are sent back to her. One of these requests is with a solution proposal, the other just a question. So I log on again. I see immediately what requires my attention is brought to the front of the screen in this dashboard, so she doesn't have to look at the whole list. So let's say the access to sales order display. Now I read the question, which sales organization is relevant. So I have now only these two responses, close request or return from customer. So if I decided that this request is actually no longer relevant, I could close it, but typically I would return it with additional information. And the status is sent back to the service team, changed to work in progress. And it is disappearing from my pending requests queue. Now this request is also waiting for my verification. Could you please check available laptops in the knowledge base? We do not upgrade memory in existing laptops. So let's say this request I can close. And I can provide an assessment of being satisfied. For instance, I'm positively surprised with a very quick response. So now I do not see any more pending requests. I just see pending on my side. I just see those older requests that are still work in progress on the service side. To illustrate still a few other options on the service request side, I will log on as administrator to show the broadest possible number of requests. So here we see that today, so far, we have 2 new requests open, both created by Emily. One of these has been closed already. The other one is still in progress. All interactions between the service and users can trigger email notifications. These emails can be customized by the users using this panel. Here, of course, the end user, who we can also call customer, is able to change the notifications only for this first column. The others are not visible. If you are a service consultant, you have all these possible settings to make sure that you customize the range of notifications exactly according to your needs and the specifics of your process. We can also make sure that the text of the notification templates is exactly customized to our needs of the company by changing the provided email notification templates. They are defined using HTML syntax and can be changed by the IT specialist, for instance, in your company. Here is an example of an email service case notification where we can append also additional information such as some sort of contact numbers or additional instructions for the users. And example of a notification in the default configuration looks like this screen. So we have seen already the request is completed and possibly also with some assessment. We have mentioned in one of these responses the knowledge base functionality. So here we can publish any types of notes that are relevant for our users. So for instance, IT instructions, announcements, manuals, and so on. One example that we mentioned in this example was the information about recommended laptops. We can edit this kind of articles here easily. We can change it, of course, if we are authorized as the editors. We can also create multiple knowledge bases with different rights. So for instance, we could have IT internal notes, and we can have IT public notes for the end users with the information, and also the change of these knowledge base articles can also be notified by email to the users who are subscribing these knowledge bases. Now let's go back to the presentation. This slide illustrates the standard service desk workflow. These statuses were illustrated in our example. The new request is created in status open. When it is assigned to a specific person responsible on the service side, it becomes work in progress. When the solution is ready, we send it as a pending to customer. And now the customer has the option either to close it if the solution is sufficient, or to send it back to the service, and it returns to work in progress. The service can also park it to status pending other third party. So for instance, if we receive a laptop, we can laptop that is damaged, we can decide that this needs to be sent back to the manufacturer to be fixed, and then we could have a request changed to status sent to other party. Here we provide explanation and we enter the date when it is expected to return. So for instance, 1 week from now. We can optionally specify the time to return, let's say midday 1 week from now. And this request for now will be parked in status pending other with explanation preferably entered here. It is going to return automatically to status work in progress at the specified date and time. Or if it returns earlier, we can of course trigger this manually. The important role of this pending other is that this action can freeze the service level agreement time counters if we define it so in our service level agreement. Which brings us to the question of SLA. Of course, the service desk application offers the option to configure the SLA. Here we have our example of a request that was related to the ERP system, user management, and priority high. For this combination of task category and priority, we have response time defined as 2 hours. We have resolution time defined as 8 hours. And also the schedule for this kind of requests is 24/7, 365 days. So the clock is always running. You can always have the type of schedule such as 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, or some other service calendars, depending on the type of requests and procedures in our company. Usually we monitor 2 types of SLAs. We can configure more. So response time is the time to acknowledge the request, and it ends when we assign the person responsible and inform the requester about this person. So this is when our request moves from open to work in progress. Resolution time is the time to send the solution back to the customer and then close the request. Here the response time is already completed because we have acknowledged the request and started working on it after just 4 minutes during this presentation. Resolution time is still running because it is still work in progress. So far 12 minutes. After the next refresh, it's now already 14 minutes while we are waiting for this request, but we still have more than 7 hours to solve it. If we now send it to our customer, you see that the resolution time counter is suspended because the request is on the customer side. If the customer closes it, it is going to be closed just within 2% of the total time. If it goes back to the service, this time counter will start again. We can see in administration settings of the service desk, in the contracts category, we can create any number of contracts, define to which tasks these contracts belong. We can create any list of tasks and categories that are applicable. And then for various priorities and resolution time, response time, or other service level objectives, we define the durations. And as you can see, we can also mix different types of schedules, and these schedules can be freely defined. Here we have example of just two, never stopping and working days 8 to 1800 CT. We can also define automatic notification to a certain group of people when, let's say, resolution time reaches 50%, notify IT systems team or just the manager of the team. We can also define the text of the contract that will be available to the service personnel as additional information, notes, or support documentation. And when we are handling a specific request, we can also see this specific contract. On the sheet contract, we see this supporting information that was entered there. We can jump to display the whole contract. I already mentioned this log view. Objects is another supporting information. We can define any relevant types of information for our requests. So for instance, if this refers to ERP system, let's say we can have numbers of SAP service nodes. We could have numbers of some system patches or SAP transports or other type of information. In this Systems tab, we can also have automatically proposed by system the relevant systems that can be useful in the context of this particular request. Also with some sensitive information such as logon details and user passwords that are hidden here and can be revealed on request of the user. Of course, only if we are authorized to see this tab. So the end user does not see all these additional tabs, but the service personnel has access to the SLA contract and other information. When I log on as Emily Rose, so the initiator, you see that her view of the same request is much more limited. Although it could be, of course, extended if it was the need of our service organization. I'm going to explain briefly other functions of the Service Desk application. The heart of the system is, of course, the service request processing, and it can already handle a very broad number of different scenarios, not only IT but as I mentioned earlier, we could extend it to HR, administration, finance, and other processes. But sometimes we have service processing needs that are not exactly mapped to the service request processing, but should be supported with some more appropriate different types of requests or forms. So one functionality we are offering for processes such as problem management is the type of the form that we call the task sheet, because it's very flexible and can be adjusted to different types of customers. I'm going to present an example of using these task sheets. Using another service employee. These task sheets are types of forms that we can define as a sequence of activities, sequence of people responsible and the deadlines. So for instance, we have one task sheet now for problem management and one for security incidents. So for instance, for problem management, I could describe a certain collection of issues that are repeatedly raised by our service customers, and we want to have a more systemic resolution for them. So here we provide a short description, reference to existing service requests that were including this problem, and we send it to the next person responsible. So here, as you can see, the employee creating the request is assigned as the first, executing the first task, and the subsequent tasks are assigned here to the IT systems group, which also happens to be Mary Brown's group, and the last step is assigned here to the employee who is raising the action. So here we have define the problem, review problem definition, specify corrective actions, verify corrective actions. Let's see the other type of request, security incident. Here we have Mary Brown as the initiator, and the next steps here are called evaluate incident, and assign corrective actions are assigned to someone else, to IT security manager. So after we complete this first step, describe the incident and confirm it, the step is completed, the next step is pending, the security manager will receive a notification. You also see that the dates were automatically assigned here, plus 1 day from now, and plus 5 days from now. How are these forms structured? We will log in as the administrator, and now in the customizing of the system, we can see that each of these problem management, security incident, or new templates, they are a collection of these tasks, where each task has a description, assigned person, who could be a specific user or a generic employee who is creating this request, or his or her superior, or a certain group. We also can assign due date relative to the date of creating this new task sheet. So for instance, here we have +1, +5 days. And the status of a specific task. So these tasks can be executed in parallel or can be executed sequentially, where each step is starting the next step to be processed. You can also have more information, such as this kind of information prompt to enter, and some additional control information. So it is very easy to change the sequence of these steps and add new steps. So for instance, we can say and now we have not 3 but 5 steps with some additional actions and new deadlines. When we create the new security incident for the future, you see that we have now not 3 but 4 and 5 actions with due date 10 days from now, because we have just customized it a moment ago. So this mechanism can be used to reflect any types of sequences of actions and procedures in your company. It's very easy to modify according to the customer's needs, and you can create multiple types of these task sheets. Also, you can browse it by the sheet, or also by individual tasks, to see where for each person or group the specific activity from the sheet is actually still to be handled. My tasks, my group tasks, my tasks still pending for execution, and so on. When we go to the specific task, we see the whole card as the context for executing this task. Another function that we mention here is the database of IT equipment and software licenses. We can maintain, in the Resources tab, we can maintain our database of IT equipment. Let's say I'm going to create a new computer record. Status, and optionally some additional fields such as MAC address of the network card, or the size of the RAM, for instance. Now, this database of equipment can be verified also by who is currently the user or person responsible. So when we issue equipment to specific users, for instance, this new laptop, we are going to issue to Emily, who was investigating recently buying a new laptop. Now, the status of this piece of equipment is issued, The current user is Emily. We are also going to issue the license for Windows to Emily. Oh, she already has this license, I suppose. Yes, she has received it yesterday. So we can issue the license for Microsoft Office to Emily to use with the new laptop. We see we have purchased 20 user licenses for Microsoft Office. Yesterday we are going to issue one to Emily. Now we see we have purchased 20, we have issued one so far, we have still 19 licenses remaining to be issued. When we check the records about Emily Rose, marketing specialist in our company, we can see in the equipment tabs that she is currently responsible for one laptop of specific serial number issued today, and she has assigned 2 software licenses for Windows and for Microsoft Office. So we can keep track of our equipment and also level of using the software licenses in this simple way. We can also process the purchase requisitions related to these elements directly in this application. There is a certain form for processing and approving purchase orders. So for instance, it can also handle even the different currencies and quantities. It could also be related to some cost assignment to a team or a specific person or a different cost center. This request can be now activated and go through an approval workflow. Here, as the administrator, I have rights to both approve and reject, but it could usually be forwarded to, let's say, financial manager or another authority. There are other functions that are less frequently used. We are not going to go into much details of them, but BeeOffice Service Desk includes functionality to schedule shifts or time out of office for the service personnel, recording time spent on tasks in order to produce timesheets, or also define and distribute service assessment satisfaction questionnaires periodically to your users. How do we approach the implementation? As I mentioned earlier, BeeOffice Service Desk is available in software as a service model, which means we can create a new instance of the system almost instantly for your organization. There is no need to install any software. It is available just from a web browser. No need to install any servers, databases, and so on, which means that time to deliver the solution is very short. Because there is a question of defining the organization structure, entering user master data, setting up authorizations, defining some other settings, it means that it may require a little bit of training or maybe some customized user manuals. We estimate this as maximum 3 days of our consulting work, and we normally provide it free of charge for our customers. We charge the monthly subscription fee that is normally based on the number of service processing users regardless of the number of end users. And The system is very flexible, can be interfaced or enhanced depending on customer requirements. We also provide this custom development service that is very moderately priced. If you are interested in verifying the functionality presented here in your own company, just clicking on all these fields and forms and trying out these processes and whether the system is clear and user-friendly, we are going to provide you access to a demo system. You can evaluate the sample data, and the system and the software as a service model can be created almost instantly. Please contact us and we will be very happy to support you in improving your service desk experience for your end users.